Who is the strongest enhancer in Hunter x Hunter? Well, that's what we're going to be figuring out today. This is the criteria I used, and let's get right into this. In last at 16, we have Komugi. Listen, I love Komugi as a character, but as a fighter, she's literally a child, and the only time she has Nen is when she's playing Gungi. Having a Nen ability that's not for combat is already bad when it comes to these rankings, but when you include her non-existent combat experience and her penchant for pacifism, it becomes even worse. Komugi may have been the only character to ever beat Meruem, but she is not a character who is strong in a fight. At 15, we have Zeho. You probably don't remember who this is. He was in Greed Island for 1 second and got destroyed by Bopobo. We know almost nothing else about this guy, and I don't even know why he's mentioned in the wiki as an enhancer, but he's there, so we have to rank him. At 14, we have Guido. This human Beyblade is the definition of scum and is also super weak. I know I probably shouldn't be mean to an amputee, but if you have to take advantage of 12-year-olds to accomplish your goals, you are scum and you are super weak. He is the first person that we're talking about with an actual ability though, as he can use 2 different top-based abilities to keep people away from him and do damage. This strategy was very effective against Gon in their first fight, but keep in mind this was a completely new Nen user. When they have their rematch, Gon easily defeats him, and this defeat gives us a pretty good frame for Guido's strength. At 13, we have Ikago. Yeah, turns out Ikago is an enhancer, not a manipulator, so if you're a fan of him, you get to hear about him twice. Look, I love Ikago, but let's be honest, he's pretty weak. His ability to take over the bodies of corpses is good, but if he doesn't have a decent corpse, his abilities are pretty limited. I think his biggest drawback by far is that he's just a straight up coward. He couldn't bring himself to kill his fellow Chimera Ants despite how much easier it would make his situation, and he also prefers to fight from a distance which doesn't really mesh well with the majority of the cast. He also gets way worse if we consider him in his current state since he lost almost half his tentacles. He's just not built for combat, and as such, he has to be lower on this list. These next 2 could definitely be switched. I'm not 100% sure on either of them, to be honest. Up next, we have Rabid Dog. Like all the shadow beasts, Rabid Dog's real strength is in his ability to collaborate with the other beasts. Because of this, he isn't a huge threat on his own, resulting in his lower placement. Plus, to be honest, even with that collaboration, the beasts are basically overcooked pasta. His ability is decent as it allows him to easily paralyze his opponents and cleave their flesh with his sharp teeth. This is decent against weak opponents, but opponents that are stronger or faster than Dog will have a huge advantage over him. I know that sounds kind of dumb. Obviously, a stronger opponent is going to be stronger, but there are Nen users who have abilities that make stronger opponents more manageable. This isn't the case for Rabid Dog, and if you need to punch down to get an advantage, you probably aren't a strong Nen user to begin with. At 11, we have Bill. Bill is hard to rank because we just don't know a lot about his combat ability. He was able to collaborate well with Kurapika in the takedown of this assassin, but that's the only time we see him in combat. On top of this, his ability is not combat based, which immediately makes it hard for him to be high on this list. While his ability is great for the Succession War, as it allows Nen users to grow faster than they would normally be able to, it is not good for general combat from what we can tell. The main reason I'm putting him above Rabid Dog is because he is very intelligent. We have seen his ability to accurately assess the Succession War multiple times, even occasionally giving Kurapika new insight. He is also extremely level-headed, which is imperative in a combat situation. I love Bill as a character, but I don't know where to put him in terms of strength. This general area feels right, but it's hard to say based off of one interaction. At 10, we have Ramot. Ramot only has 2 advantages going for him: his Chimera Ant toughness and his ability to hit hard even without Nen. He was able to kind of go toe-to-toe with Gon and Killua before they used their abilities, and he also has a strong drive to fight since he's kind of just insane. I mean, the dude wears a Speedo all the time. But that's pretty much all I can say about him in a positive manner, because he's quite literally an idiot and he's quite arrogant as well. He also got one-shot by Killua after he took out the needle, so we have a pretty good limit on his strength as well. Rama is pretty strong for a typical Chimera Ant, but he's not that strong overall. At 9, we have Goto. Goto's another weird one to rank. He died in the only fight we see him in, but it was against Hisoka, so he's in the same boat as 99% of Hisoka's challengers. His coin-based abilities are simple, but they're also pretty effective. They remind me a bit of Nen bullets, but it does have a few different styles that can accomplish different things. He is fairly smart as well, as he figured out a decent counter to Bungee Gum, and he is also a butler of the Zoldicks as well, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. I don't really have anything else to say about him. The competition for enhancers is just really tight, which is leading to his low placement. At 8, we have Gon. But before we get into Gon, please consider subscribing. Listen, let's just be honest, subscribing doesn't matter on YouTube anymore. The algorithm is going to show you the video that you want to see regardless of who you're subbed to, which means that subscribing to me probably won't do that much for this channel. But even if subscribing doesn't help this channel, it will help my self-esteem, because seeing that little number go up is one of my last remaining sources of serotonin. So please subscribe for my brain's own good. Ah yes, the main protagonist. Unfortunately, Gon is not a strong Nen user. Like, he's not weak, but his abilities are not the best. He has a strong will to fight and a strong drive to get better at Nen. He's beaten plenty of people that are stronger than him, and he's also advancing faster than some of the best Nen users in the cast. Unfortunately, he does lack in intelligence, in case that wasn't obvious, and he also has a nasty habit of being stubborn and letting his emotions get in the way. These can be a huge drawback on the battlefield, but they can also be a huge advantage. The main reason I'm not putting him any higher is that I just don't think his Nen abilities are good enough to justify it. They all have a long charge time, and only one of them is centered in enhancement, and from what we've seen, the other two are not particularly strong. Also, in case it wasn't obvious, I'm not taking adult Gon into account here, because it's not his normal strength and it's kind of a one-off thing. Overall, Gon is a good Nen user, but because his abilities are not great and he's relatively inexperienced, I'm putting him at 8th. At 7th, we have Castro. Castro is a lot like Goto. He's kind of hard to rank because we only see him in one fight, and in that fight, he gets absolutely obliterated by Hisoka. The main difference between Goto and Castro is their ability. Castro has two good abilities, his Nen Double and Tiger Bite Fist. These abilities are great on their own, but it's even better since his double can use Tiger Bite Fist as well. He was also a floor master in Heaven's Arena, which is a huge accomplishment in its own right, and his only real weakness is his weaker mental constitution, which ended up playing a major role in his loss. I really wish we got to see more of Castro. His design was super cool and his abilities were cool as well. At least the fight he had was one of the best in the series, so he got a memorable send-off. At 6 we have Wing. I love Wing. He's a great teacher and a great person in general. Probably. Seeing him this high up might be surprising, but I think he is among the top tiers of Nen users. In a Nen battle, information and general knowledge are almost as important as strength itself. Wing is very knowledgeable about Nen in general, as he was able to explain pretty much every basic concept of Nen to the boys with little issue. He has also demonstrated his control and understanding of Nen in a few different ways. On top of this, he was also trained by Bisky, who is one of the best Nen users in the show, and an even more prestigious teacher. Putting Wing at 6 might be a bit of an overrating, but I like him, and I think he's a lot stronger than most people give him credit for. At 5 we have Nobunaga. The first of 3 Troupe members on this list, Nobunaga is a good Nen user. Not great, but good. He's one of the few Troupe members whose ability we haven't seen yet, so it's hard to get a super accurate gauge of his strength, but we do know he's an expert in using his katana. We saw him use it to effortlessly decapitate Squala, and he even threw it during the Succession War, just barely holding on to the end. He also knows how to use a few advanced techniques, including Shu and En. I think Nobunaga is also deceptively smart, as he has dismantled Nen abilities after only seeing them once or twice. His only drawback is that he can be a bit hot-headed and stubborn, which can impair judgment, but it does take a decent amount to set him off. All in all, Nobunaga is a pretty good enhancer. We just have some really tough competition going forward. At 5th we have Palm. No, I'm not talking about this Palm, I'm talking about this Palm. The new updated Palm is a huge threat in general. Not only does she have the upgraded durability of a Chimera Ant, she also seems to have upgraded Nen potential as well. And that's not even talking about her new abilities. When she transformed, Palm gained 2 new abilities. The first one is control over her hair in every way. We've seen this be used to beat Killua into a mental breakdown and hold Komugi hostage. She can also see the location of 3 other people that she's seen when she covers her left eye. This ability might not be great in combat, but it kind of depends on the opponent's strategy. For instance, this ability would have been great for Hisoka in his fight against Chrollo. I know putting Palm over Nobunaga might be controversial, but considering we don't know that much about Nobunaga's ability, I think it makes sense. At 3 we have Finks. The main reason Finks is this high up is his ability. His Ripper Cyclotron allows him to make his punch stronger the more times he cranks his arm. He used this to one-shot a Chimera Ant during the troops' defense of Meteor City, and he believed it would only take 10 cranks to destroy the ant. What makes this ability so powerful is that we don't know if it has a cap. Like, I'm sure it does because everything in Nen has limits, but where is that cap? Even if it does have a cap, that cap might not matter if 10 cranks was enough to obliterate a Chimera Ant. Most Nen users won't be able to survive 10 cranks in the first place, and considering his general strength and speed, getting those cranks in probably isn't that hard for Finks. This ability makes him an incredibly powerful Nen user, and it's enough to justify just barely get him in the top 3. Coming in at second, we have Uvo. When I see Uvo, I see the peak of a normal enhancer. He's a hard-hitting and earnest guy who worked hard to increase his strength and constantly wanted to become stronger. We can see his strength clearly with the Big Bang Punch, which is a punch that has the strength of a missile. Even without Big Bang, his punches are really strong. In fact, it seems like everything he does with his body is powerful. His voice, his spitting ability, he's even defensively powerful as he was able to easily live an RPG. On top of his strength, he also displays a fairly high degree of intelligence, especially when it comes to Nen. He was able to ascertain his win condition against Kurapika even if he wasn't able to accomplish it, and he was also able to instantly understand how big of a threat Kurapika was to the Troupe. It's also been stated that Uvo is the Troupe member with the most raw strength, and I think this should make it obvious why he's above the other two mentioned. As I said earlier, I do think he's the peak of normal enhancers, but there is unfortunately one special case that is stronger than him. In first, we of course have Netero. Netero is currently the strongest human in Hunter x Hunter. He is a man who found himself not happy with his peak and went through extraordinary effort to reinvent himself, in the process surpassing his limits and becoming one of the strongest Nen users ever to exist. He is a man who survived voyage to the Dark Continent, a man who held his own against the strongest being in the show, a man who did all of this with an ability that is outside his own affinity. Netero is, at the time of recording, the strongest human character in Hunter x Hunter, bar none. His 100 type ability is an ability that almost no one can beat. He was a man that sought challenges in every aspect of his life in order to grow. He is by far the strongest enhancer in the show, and he is also a character that is beloved by many. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, please consider subscribing. I lied earlier, it really does help me out, and if you're already subscribed, maybe check out my Twitter. There will be a link to it in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for yet another video.